If you ever see a job posting offering $60 an hour for overnight security at an abandoned shopping mall, delete the email. Block the sender. Do not, under any circumstances, show up for the interview. I ignored the red flags because I was broke. Now, I'm sitting inside a locked security office, watching 4 security monitors flickering with static, listening to something scratch against the steel door right behind me. My name is Mark. I survived my first week at the Silverwood Galleria, but only because I memorized the laminated rule card glued to my desk. If you're listening to this, pay close attention, because if you ever step foot inside a place like this after midnight, these rules might be the only thing keeping you alive. Silverwood Galleria was built in 1988 and closed down in 2012 after a series of unexplained disappearances in the basement level. The town left it to rot. Broken skylights, rusted escalators, and dust thicker than carpet. When I applied for the job, the manager, a pale, hollow-eyed man named Mr. Vance, didn't ask for a resume. He didn't run a background check. He just handed me a flashlight, a heavy iron ring of keys, and a yellow laminated card. "Read it twice," Vance said, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. "Follow them precisely. The shift starts at 10 p.m. and ends at 6 a.m. Don't try to leave early. The heavy glass doors lock automatically from the outside, and nothing gets out until sunrise." Before I could ask him what he meant, he drove away, leaving me alone in the pitch-black parking lot. I walked inside, the heavy scent of damp concrete and decaying carpet hitting my nostrils. I sat at the central security desk in the middle of the atrium. I pulled out the yellow card and shined my flashlight on it. Rule 1. At 11:30 p.m., the clothing store mannequins on the second floor will assemble at the railing. Do not look up at them and never look them in the eye. If you hear them whisper your name, keep walking. I laughed quietly to myself. Mannequins? Right. At 11:28 p.m., the silence of the mall was shattered by a loud, rhythmic dragging sound coming from the upper floor. Drag, thud. Drag, thud. I froze. I slowly raised my flashlight toward the second floor balcony. Standing right along the glass railing were 30 plastic mannequins. None of them had been there when I took my first patrol. They were headless, armless, or covered in dust, all angled toward the atrium, toward me. Suddenly, a raspy, metallic whisper echoed through the empty mall. "Mark. Look up, Mark." My heart slammed against my ribs. The voice sounded like my late mother's. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to look up, to check if it was really her. But I remembered Rule 1. I stared directly at my boots, clenched my fists, and walked straight into the security office, locking the door behind me. By 1 a.m., the whispering had stopped. I thought the worst was over. Then came the smell. It was sweet, salty, and warm. The distinct smell of fresh buttered popcorn emanating from the old abandoned movie theater down the east wing. Rule 2. If you smell buttered popcorn, put on your noise-canceling headphones immediately. You have 30 seconds before the projection room starts playing. I pulled the heavy black headphones from my tactical vest and slapped them over my ears just as a blinding white light shot across the corridor from the theater balcony. Even through the heavy padding of my headphones, I could feel the vibrations of an old film projector humming to life. Chug, 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 chug. I peeked around the corner. The theater doors were wide open. Projecting onto the faded wall was a grainy black and white reel of a man in a security guard uniform walking down. The same hallway I was in. On the film, a towering, shadowy figure with elongated limbs crept up behind the guard, silently opening its jaw impossibly wide. The guard in the video turned around, and I saw his face. It was me. Gasps. I shut my eyes tight, squeezed the headphones against my ears, and backed away step by step until the buttered popcorn scent vanished and was replaced by the stale air of the main hallway. At 2:30 a.m., I made my way to the employee break room to grab a bottle of water. Rule 3. Do not open locker 404 in the break room, no matter who knocks from the inside or how desperately they scream for help. The break room was freezing. My breath bloomed into pale clouds in the dim flashlight beam. Across the room stood a row of rusted green lockers. Locker 404 was heavily dented, wrapped in thick iron chains and secured with 3 padlocks. As I reached for my water bottle on the table, a violent bang exploded from inside locker 404. Bang, bang, bang! Help me! Please, God, someone open the door! It's cold in here! The voice was terrified, frantic, sounding like a young girl. The locker shook so violently that flakes of rust rained down onto the floor. Please! He left me in here! Just cut the chain! My hands shook. I reached into my pocket where the master keys were. I took 2 steps toward the locker. But as I got closer, I noticed something underneath the locker door. Black, oily fluid was oozing out from the bottom seam, and instead of human feet, I saw long, needle-like, chitinous legs pressing against the bottom metal vent dot. It wasn't a girl. It was mimicking one. I backed out of the room, leaving my water behind, and locked the break room door from the outside. Rule 4. At 3:33 a.m., go to the Retro Arcade on the first floor and place a quarter on the Time Crisis arcade cabinet. If the machine turns on, run. Rule 5. If the central elevator button lights up for the basement floor, do not look inside when the doors open. It was 3:30 a.m. I hurried toward the arcade, my flashlight beam bouncing off empty storefronts. I found the Time Crisis machine covered in cobwebs. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a quarter, and placed it gently on the coin slot. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then, the CRT monitor flashed bright red. The 8-bit sound effects roared at full volume through the silent mall. Game over. Insert coin to continue. I didn't hesitate. I turned on my heel and bolted down the concourse. Behind me, I heard the elevator ding. Ding! The heavy metal doors of the central elevator groaned open. A freezing draft blew out from the elevator shaft, carrying the stench of rot and wet earth from the sealed underground basement. Remembering Rule 5, I threw myself face down onto the tiled floor, pressing my forehead against the cold ground. I heard heavy, wet footsteps stepping out of the elevator. Squelch, squelch, squelch. Something massive stopped right beside my head. I could smell its foul breath, a mix of copper and decay. It leaned down. I felt an ice-cold, leathery finger trail slowly along the back of my neck. Don't quote move, don't look, don't breathe, I chanted in my head. After what felt like an eternity, the heavy footsteps retreated back into the elevator. The doors slid shut, and the elevator plunged back down into the basement depths. I lay on that floor until the first rays of morning light filtered through the cracked glass dome of the atrium. At 6 a.m. sharp, the heavy front doors unlocked with a loud mechanical click. I didn't grab my belongings. I didn't wait for Mr. Vance to relieve me. I ran to my car, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. When I checked my bank account 2 hours later, there was a wire transfer of $480. Attached was a text message from an unknown number. Great job on night 1, Mark. See you tonight at 9:50 p.m. Remember, Rule 6 applies on Tuesdays. I haven't gone back home. I'm writing this from a diner 3 towns over. If anyone watching this gets a job offer for Silverwood Galleria, run. If you want to hear what happens in part 2 and find out what Rule 6 is, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. Stay safe out there.